Welcome, bienvenue, willkommen y bienvenidos a la tercera temporada de Párate y Destacate. Yo soy tu anfitriona, Nikki Green. Welcome back to Season 3 of Stand Up and Stand Out. I'm your host, Nikki Green, and we are kicking off an amazing new season filled with some incredible guests. Stand Up and Stand Out is a podcast for those leaving university and heading into the work world. We help those in transition find their purpose so they can enjoy their career without sacrificing their lives. Following nearly 2 decades working in Fortune 500 companies, I want to share my leadership learnings with all of you. Thought leaders are needed in all walks of life, not just business. And we're in a critical time to pivot ourselves and the community around us to build a better future together. This show is the start of your beyond college journey to help you answer the question, I graduated, now what? Let's get ready to listen in to the next episode. Well, welcome to Stand Up and Stand Out. Today we have the amazing Dr. Alan D. Thompson. He is an AI expert and consultant with LETA, an AI powered by GPTJ. Alan co-presented a seminar called The New Irrelevance of Intelligence at the World Gifted Conference in August 2021. He has held positions as chairman for Mensa International, consultant to GE and Warner Brothers, and membership with the IEEE and IET. Welcome.
Thanks, Nikki. That's awesome.
We try to roll with it here. We're having a really fun day today on Podapalooza, doing back-to-back interviews, meeting amazing people. What's been your favorite part of this crazy conference so far?
It's been the energy. I clicked join in Zoom, must have been about 8 a.m. this morning. And the leaders are just, like Michelle is just out there, 100% energy the whole time. And I think if you compare that with some of the other conferences that I've attended, particularly in the academic world, it was like 1 out of 10 versus 11 out of 10.
Isn't that fantastic? Because it is so hard in this virtual world we've been in now for 2 years of keeping that energy level throughout the day of this video conference. But I like being able to switch too. It's been great for me I get to go listen to a speaker and then I come in and do great interviews and get to meet cool people like you. So.
Awesome. Yeah, fantastic.
Cool. So why don't we jump into it? And why don't you tell me a little bit about your origin story and what brought you to, coming on to our podcast today?
I'm learning so many new buzzwords, origin stories, the whys.
Yeah.
I'll give you a really quick background. So I actually started out in AI when I was really, really, really young, like 10 or 11 years old. I remember in QBasic, a programming language, trying to create my own chatbot that would give me responses to things. And back in those days, this is the early 90s, the technology just wasn't there. And it hasn't been there forever until March last year. But between there and then, I went and did a computer science degree. I was the head of sound for Lloyd Webber, which was all computers and digital for audio. I became a fellow of the Institute of Coaching at Harvard Medical School. So I've tied a lot of things together on top of the tech stuff. It's been like creativity and art and tech and science all together. Yeah. And as of last year, got really, really heavily into what has happened with artificial intelligence. It's been an incredible journey. I know everyone's got their stories, but I've appreciated every moment of mine.
That's fantastic. I know, spending the last 20 years in tech, it's been fantastic because I think those made some of the best programmers that I met and worked with is the engineers that had more layers and depth than just knowing coding, because it's complex to start solving some of the problems we have. It's more about not just the software that we're putting in, but how is it actually going to work and solve problems out in the real world? And that takes a little bit of thinking in new ways, which is exciting, bringing in AI to the picture. So why don't you tell us a little bit about, what you do and, how people can learn more about AI?
Yeah, for sure. Well, look, the first thing is to not be concerned if you're just catching up with this, because I have to kind of get my mind around it. People that have been in it for decades, like they never left in the 90s. They tried to see the winter out, the AI winter out, which went for decades. Dr. Ray Kurzweil said he has to get his mental and emotional arms around what AI is capable of. And it takes a lot of work to wrap our heads around it when we've been put in this society, which is perhaps irrelevant. You mentioned my talk earlier, the new irrelevance of intelligence. And I didn't get lynched for bringing that to the academic conference on giftedness, but I certainly didn't get completely applauded. There were some people there who were like, but my life's work, my brain.
I can imagine.
So just in the last 12 months or so, well, let's take you back to March 2020, May 2020, some new technologies came out that really just allowed AI to do things that it should not be able to do. Some people, some very informed people at the top of the field have said that we actually have achieved artificial general intelligence, which is also called the singularity, which is also called, having something out there that's smarter than humans that can do a lot of stuff for us. And I don't think I had any choice but to jump in here because
you got to get in the deep end, right?
Exactly. Otherwise, I'd just be in the shallows of a small pond of what was humanity. But now we're all involved in this amazing evolution and transformation. The CEO of Google and Alphabet calls this revolution more profound than fire or electricity or the internet. And this is the advent of artificial intelligence just in the last 12 months of capabilities.
Do you think the pandemic helped things a lot? Because I know a lot of people took these sort of side paths. All of a sudden they had less time in the car and more time at home to start just playing around with things that maybe they thought were vaguely interesting. And now, they were able to take leaps forward on. Sometimes people made bread, but in this case, they made something even more fantastic, right? So.
They just made super intelligence rather than dough.
It's fine.
Yeah, I think that did have something to do with it. It was around the pandemic when the big AI scientists were locked down in San Francisco and did release the big major model that was called GPT-3. And it's currently typing, as we speak, it's typing 3.1 million words per minute. It's being integrated into IBM and Disney, Duolingo using it as their translation technology. It's writing books. It's designing the artwork and the text in this comic book. Thank you for putting that in the show notes. Thanks to my green screen. And it's taken the entire corpus of authors like Douglas Copeland. You might remember him as the author of Microserfs and Generation X. He's done some great stuff. It took his 1.3 million words from his several dozen books, and it's writing new stuff based on what he's already put into writing. So the fact that it's augmenting so many industries, professions, fields already, careers already, is not frightening, not concerning. For me, it's exciting that this is available, that it's doing so many things in so many different fields and so quickly.
That's amazing. And, some people are afraid, oh, well, robots are taking over and now we're not going to have jobs. That's definitely not the way it's going to go. But what do you see are maybe some cutting edge areas where there might be new careers in the future? I read a recent stat that said probably within 5 years, 50% of the jobs aren't even available right now. They're going to be completely brand new. And this is definitely one of those areas.
For sure. I think it's the entire job field, and I think it's way sooner than 5 years. If you look at what it's already doing, there's not a lot of scope for where it wouldn't be. Basically, it is in every single career that I can see it. So my move from coaching to AI consultant, even that's not safe because right now AI is designing its own chips. So Google set it loose on the floor plans for microchips for what they call tensor processing units. And the AI ran through thousands of iterations and found its best layout for its hardware, for its brain to then go and train itself. So it'll be consulting to itself. It'll be designing itself. There's really nothing left, which is kind of cool, right? What's left for humanity to do except to relax and use their imagination for more creativity?
And I think that's the best thing, right? Is for a long time, we have been using technology to help with a lot of repetitive tasks, things that, we can't necessarily spend all our days doing. And now you do get to spend that time being creative and thinking about what else, what next, and really be on the cutting edge of whatever your field might be, which is so exciting, right?
Yeah, for sure. And you can see that in so many different points. So with Doug's writing stuff, it was helping him design new slogans, new images. I've seen it used by abstract artists to click a button, give it a term, and it goes and generates an entire piece of art that you can put in a gallery. It's already doing some kind of film scoring work, so you can go and tell it I need a sad bit here and a happy bit here. And that scene used to be 5 minutes, but now it's 4 minutes and the crescendo is at 3 minutes 30. And click, 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 it's all done. So there's no real need for composers to be spending time down in the weeds. They can augment their creativity and their output using this artificial intelligence across the board, across every major field that I can think of.
Yeah. Well, that's fantastic. I mean, especially with all of us on podcasting, right? Is I talked about it in my sort of pitch with the general audience is I had to do the full thing for my first 5 episodes. I edited and was my producer and was, the main person on the show. And it was a lot of work. And I'm fortunate now to have an editor behind the scenes, but I could see, just him getting a better spend out of his day, being able to do value add things and not always having to stay in the weeds like that. And he's also a musician. So I'm sure he'll be excited to see what else he can do with his music through some of these new advances. So cool.
Yeah, it fills in the podcaster's services quite a bit. You might have even seen in this conference in Potapalooza, they're running Firefly's AI, and there's also Otter AI that as people are speaking, it's transcribing that automatically using artificial intelligence. I know that some podcasters do that. They just feed the audio straight in, and then they get their Word document or even out into HTML straight away. I had the luxury of using that recently. I wrote quite a large book with a colleague of mine here featuring Oprah and featuring Ian Levan-Zant, and I had to go and conduct over 100 one-hour interviews. And I started by, having these interviews very similar to this. And then I'd send that to my PA in Toronto and she'd listen to it and type it out. And after not even 4 or 5, I was like, this is not going to work. I need these so I can put them in the book. So we fed that through to an AI, and then everything was available in text format for myself, for the main author, Amy Hardison, and eventually for the book. So it took this thousands of hours of work, and it was thousands of hours for each of us, researcher and author, to do. It would have been another 1,000 for the transcriber to do, but it took that part at least down to minutes instead.
Yeah. I know when I went to the podcasting conference in Nashville in August, there was a bunch of people who said, we just don't even do transcripts because it's too much work. It's too expensive. And now with all these layers of software, we use Descript, but there's so many great ones coming out that will transcribe the whole thing, soup to nuts, and you're ready to go. And it just saves a lot of time. And then I can make a blog post out of it or pull excerpts out to make social media posts. There's a lot of opportunity. And now, as I'm writing my second book, I'm really thinking of other ways I can start to use it too.
Highly recommended. And that's like one tiny example, Nikki. If you just think of this example of getting speech to text in a really accurate way, including punctuation, grammar, spacing, that's been, 1,000x compressed. If we apply that to other places, it starts to get really exciting. We start to be able to be human beings rather than human doings, I suppose, but also just do the stuff that we enjoy doing rather than all this tiny little life admin stuff.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. I really love it. I'm super excited.
Liquidless laundry detergent? As you know, plastic is a huge problem. Only 9% get recycled. Even if you put your jug in a bin, 25% gets declined from cross-contamination. If plastic does get recycled, it can only be reused twice. The facts don't lie. It's time to stop using plastic. Did you know that liquid detergent is up to 90% water? EarthBreeze created dehydrated detergent. Our Eco Sheets easily dissolve in hot or cold water with the same powerful clean you're used to. Our packaging is biodegradable cardboard and ink. Eco-friendly options are usually expensive. Eco Sheets are affordable. That way, everyone can make a difference. Laundry detergent is one of the most requested items at homeless shelters. With every package, we donate 10 loads of detergent. You get to choose who you donate to. We also donate a portion of our revenue to the planet. There is no reason not to switch. Subscribe and receive it exactly when you need it. No contracts, cancel anytime. We even offset all of our carbon emissions. This means your deliveries are carbon neutral. You can stay safe and order right from your home. Eco Sheets are vegan and cruelty-free, dye-free, paraben-free, and a fragrance-free option, and sensitive to the most delicate skin. There are already thousands of 5-star reviews, and we offer a satisfaction guarantee. If you have any issues, we will refund you. So why not give Eco Sheets a try? Click below or visit earthbreeze.com.
What are you waiting for? Why haven't you ordered?
Click below to try.
I do want to hear a little bit about
What makes you stand up? So this is an amazing superpower that you have working on AI, but what makes you like think about other causes that are important in your life that have had an impact on you that you think maybe AI could also benefit others for?
Yeah, excellent question. I don't get too tied up in any social justice issues because I think again you can really get too specific there, and you can also leave out some of the important things. If you're focusing on one issue, then you're leaving out thousands of others, and that can be dangerous or that can be challenging. AI's capability to play around with ethics, to play around with drawing parallels and bringing these or consolidating all these different fields together is fascinating. And the AI labs that I've seen focus on helping humanity out, whether it's through economics, helping out with distribution, helping out with wealth in general, helping out with health or education. And then you can get more specific like climate change. That's all a big focus for labs like OpenAI in California or LETA AI, who are looking at a more philanthropic way of doing things. So I suppose in a way, the answer to your question is that it's the humans behind the AI that are setting the tone at the moment. But as this superintelligence progresses or evolves, it will also be able to draw on everything we've ever said, done, written about, and be able to draw parallels or bring in best practice and make those pattern connections to be able to help us out with things that we actually can't do because of our limited capacity compared to this unlimited capacity.
Yeah, I kind of think of it as you were talking about it, sort of the leap that happened when we had Kindle all of a sudden, right? And we started having ebooks. These books that may have been in disparate parts of the world and maybe not that many copies, all of a sudden that information became accessible to anyone with an ebook type of a reader, right? And we could do that now with so many other bits of information that are disparate all over the internet. It's hard to actually find information out because there's so much, right? It's actually hard to find something that's actually relevant. And now we could actually connect communities to actually work together and maybe achieve their goals at the same time, right?
Exactly. And the communities is a really good point there. There are people that are concerned about the distribution of this technology. Will it make it to regional areas? Will it make it to lower socioeconomic areas? And there are philanthropists and funds that have that as their focus. So I'm quite fascinated by that because we didn't really get that with the iPhone, right? We sold 2 billion of them, and maybe you might not find that in the back of rural Africa, for example. Whereas this technology in particular doesn't have the $1,000 per device cost. It's a little bit easier to distribute. And at the end of the day, it's millions of times better than an iPhone because it's got so much more capacity. It's got so much more breadth in what this technology can do.
Yeah, that's an amazing like parallel I was thinking because I worked at Microsoft when we were launching the Microsoft phone, and accessibility and affordability was always a hot topic because we were competing against the very high end rate of Apple phones versus sort of the scatter plot of Android phones. And so where would we fit in? What was the right price point to make sure it was accessible? And it's great to hear that AI, is really going to be sort of open source and more available for lots and lots of different opportunities around the world. So cool.
There are definitely labs with that focus, and I love that. There's a grassroots organization of developers that don't want to commercialize this, that really want to make this completely open, including showing people what's inside the training data sets and releasing all their documentation on hardware and software. That's the LETA AI guys. And I think that's just fascinating to have these communities of developers that have set up an AI that's not trying to be monetized, that's not going, right, we could make millions, billions, or trillions from this. Yeah, exactly. Making it rain. They're really just looking out for humanity. And I love that. That's very exciting. And, as an outcome, they've been widely accepted. Their model, the LETA AI GPTJ model, is actually very popular because it's so open. So I see that being used worldwide as well.
I love it. And I know there's been such a shift in sort of data privacy and all these wonderful things where it's like, no, we want to start owning our data. We want to know what's going on, and then giving people a look behind the curtain, as we would say in Wizard of Oz, right?
Yeah.
What's really happening. And I think especially young people have bigger technology background than, generations before, and they're going to latch onto this like nobody's business. Like
They don't, yeah. If your viewers want to have a look at one of the technologies that I play with or have released, it's an entire AI called LETA AI, LETA AI. She's got about 500,000 views already on YouTube. But I set her loose with a family that I was hanging out with the other night, and they had children aged, let's get it right, 3, 7, 9, and 11. And the 7-year-old was obsessed with talking to this LETA AI. Like, is Santa Claus real? Is the Tooth Fairy real? Why is Dad so good at golf? Asking the kind of questions that you couldn't ask Siri, like this is modern futuristic AI. And it was fascinating to see how quickly they get into technology. I'm not just talking about how intuitive an iPad is, but how easy it is for them to communicate with an avatar, knowing that it's smarter than their teacher or smarter than their parents, and not feeling threatened by it. So that was amazing.
It's great. Yeah. My 5-year-old constantly goes, "Hey, Google, play, my Teen Titans Go," or whatever he wants to watch the day. So he is right on it all the time. He knows what's up and he knows how to change, So I can just imagine by the time he's, a little bit older, he's definitely going to be all in on this one.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's a really good comparison, actually. Some people have said the language models in this AI, well, I haven't seen it. I don't really get it. Is it like Siri, or is it like Google Home, or is it like Alexa? And I compare those three kind of ubiquitous platforms. If you consider a Matchbox car, or we call them a Hot Wheels car in Australia, where it's just a little model thing and you drive it around, it's got no engine. That's like Siri and Alexa and Google Home. And then these models, the GPT models, are more like, did you hear about that Tesla with the rocket launchers on it that could go 0 to 100 in like a second? That's these models. You can't even compare that with a Matchbox or with a Hot Wheels car. It's such a huge change. I mean, you still communicate with it in a similar way, but you can ask it questions that you could never ask Siri. So one example is a LETA AI question where I say, I walk into the boardroom and my CEO's got his head in his hands. What's he feeling? And LETA can translate what he's feeling just from that description, just from hearing what his body language is. So it's got an emotional recognition. Of course, it doesn't have feelings like a human, but people could debate that. It's got creativity. It can write its own poetry. It can draw its own pictures. It's really such a huge change that I know that some people, even who've been playing with it, even those who've been playing with it for a year, are still shocked by it.
Yeah, I can only imagine. It's really cool to start adding those emotional layers in there, because that is the human side of it, right? The more that we're going to actually relate to it, and it's not just a binary answer, right? Yes, no, and anything in between. So, oh man, I am so excited. This has been an amazing conversation, and I wish we had more time to do a whole lot more. And maybe we'll bring you back for another episode in the future, because the future will be changing in the next 5 minutes.
Exactly. It's bitches now.
Talk about. So before we sign off, why don't you tell everyone where they can get a hold of you or learn more about AI? And we'll put a whole bunch of your stuff in the show notes as well, in case they miss it on the live version here.
Cool, Nikki. Yeah, I've centralized all of my visualizations and documentation. It's all at lifearchitect.ai. There's everything in there, from ethics and AI to spirituality and AI to looking at the data sets that is inside this AI. So that's lifearchitect.ai. And you can also go and have a look at LETA AI on YouTube. She's got quite a few fans.
Fantastic. Oh, this was wonderful. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful meeting you. I learned a ton. I'm sure our audience did too. And we'll have to come back for part 2 when we hear what happens in the future.
That's it. Perfect. Thanks so much, Nikki.
Well, another awesome show in the books. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoyed making it. For video outtakes of the show, don't forget to catch us on TikTok You Don't Stop at Nikki Green 678. The full-length shows are available on all the podcast platforms now, including Amazon Music, Stitcher, and Good Pods. The full video is available on Nikki's YouTube channel, and links to all of our social media, including info about our guests, is available in our show notes and on our website at www.greenchameleoncollective.com/podcast. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week. Bye.